Here we go. And we're live. Mr. Bauer, always a pleasure to see you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been obviously we kind of been slacking this year, just been busy, so we haven't been able to get an actual show recorded until what's this going into week 5 now.
Already. What
But
happened? I feel like we just drafted.
yeah, I was just taking a big poop in Laska's bathroom. What the heck?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to be here. It's been a fun year. I think scoring has been iffy, but I think that's kind of been an NFL thing. I just feel like there hasn't been as consistently high scoring as years past. I don't have facts to back that up, but that's just my feeling. But yeah, we got it's a pretty tight race right now. We got one undefeated team left. A bunch of good teams with some losing records. So a lot of season left. A lot can happen, and I expect some trades to be happening. Hopefully soon. I want to, even if it's not full out sells, just some exchanges. Shake things up. But we'll see.
I feel like it's kind of been a weird year, and it's especially for our league, it's hard to tell where teams are at. Like there's like good teams with players injured that have a bad record. There's some underperforming teams. So there's a lot of things going on, but I feel like the next 2-3 weeks are going to be super important, right? For kind of defining who you are. If a team is good, but they end up being 1-5 or 2-6, it's like that's a lot of ground to make up. Now, thankfully, in our league, we have the
Yeah,
points, right? So
if you fall that back that far, but you're just getting unlucky. You're playing high scoring teams every week. Well, then you pretty much just your only shot is to get in on the points, which can be tough as well because as you saw last year, Jenny ended up you know had a stud of a team, was like the second highest scoring team, maybe even the highest scoring team. I can't remember. He was right up there, and then because he just got unlucky losing, no one else was going to catch him. So it's you'd rather kind of have bit of both. I mean, I think wins are obviously the easiest way
yeah,
because it's just all right, just got to win. That's all.
wins
Uh,
do feel good.
but yeah, I think this. We'll when we get into these power rankings, you'll kind of see like there's certain teams who maybe their record doesn't show it, but they have a really good roster. They just whether it's underperforming, it's injuries, or it's just getting unlucky playing high scoring teams. Like there's just a lot goes into it, so it's not great start, get your record up there is good, but when it comes to power rankings, it's a look at the whole, your performance, your roster as
You
a
got to
whole.
look at the whole. The whole. You got to just take a look. And by the way, speaking of holes, your whole mustache is still rocking. So I thought that was a fad, but this is the new Bauer.
Well, I kind of just jokingly said I'll shave it when the Vikings lose a game.
Oh, no, they're never going to lose again.
Didn't I mean I thought the Vikings were going to be better than a lot of people, but I didn't think they would be 4-0 after that schedule. But so hopefully we can keep her going this week, and I mean it'd be great if I just got all the way to February and didn't have to shave. I mean, I trim it, but I didn't have to get rid of it until then. It'd be awesome.
That'd be something. I like where we're at. So, well, we have a lot of stuff to get to here. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the league as a whole. So you mentioned one team is undefeated. Let's go down to the deeper dive stats here. So they've had 312 points against. What is the next lowest? 389 or 345. So that's also favorable for the Poop Johnsons, but we'll see
Yeah,
where they end up falling. But 4-0 is a good start. A bunch of teams. We have 5 teams that only have one win, right? And
yeah,
they vary in skill level, but no one's winless, which is good. So it's an interesting start here.
yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, the 4-0. I mean, at the end of the day, like you can't control how many points your opponents score. You can just go out there and try and put out your best lineup. Obviously, a lot of luck comes with that, but you know, as they say, you don't apologize for a win. And yeah, and there's some teams kind of down on the on the 1 and 3 spot, especially. I think there's a couple teams there, 3 teams that I would say are kind of, one I think is very good. I think there's one that's about to explode, and I think there's another that's just a solid lineup. And so we'll get to those. And I mean, even Costello down there in last place. It's been a rough start, but we'll take a look at some rosters when we do the power rankings. But I think some potentially some good things lie ahead for the Gronk and McAnisers.
For sure. And I think we both were kind of on the same page coming into this. I think we declared yesterday that we wanted to have this show because we're overdue. But we both it's not obvious like where teams fall. So we both really wanted to make sure we're providing like valuable insight. So like without each of us knowing, we both put together our own formula to create our own power rankings. And it's the first time I've done it the way I've done it, and the results are interesting, and in the way you did it. Some things match up, some things don't. So we're going to end up going through a consensus power ranking and show you, and we'll talk where ours fell and where each other's fell. But coming in right away, or before we jump into that, Bao, anything else to add as a overall, or should we get going?
No, I mean, just glad to see that JP and Kelly Dye are getting random texts from our group chat, and
Yeah,
Costello was
that's
getting
messed up.
random ones. And then Broik was throwing me for a curveball, and he was like, "Oh, nice picture, Bauer," and I was like, "Did I not get a message now? Like, what the hell?" But yeah, no, it's been a good year so far. Just a reminder that if you're looking to make moves, if someone was an eighth round keeper before this year's draft, they follow the old rules, so they'll move up to a 6th round pick next year. But anyone who is a free agent pickup this year that would be an 8th round keeper next year will then follow the new rule where they'll just move up one, they'll move up from 8 to a 7. So just in case you're like trading for, a guy who was an 8th round keeper thinking you're going to get to keep him for a 7 next year, you will not. He will be a 6. But just if you have any questions, just ask me. Um, but just a
Just
reminder. So
basically anyone that wasn't drafted this year that gets kept next year could be kept for an eighth and then a seventh following.
in the 7th, yeah. But anyone who was like, let's say it was, just using my team as an example, I had Trey McBride, who I kept as an 8th round keeper this year. Next year, he will still follow the old rules. He'll go up to a 6 if I want to keep him. He will not get the benefit of the new rule because that didn't take place until after the keepers were sent. And so we don't want to like let that ruin like who you would have kept before the draft. So just keep that in mind in case you're looking to make some trades and thinking you're getting a late round guy who won't have that value. So always just feel free to text me questions about values. I got it all up in this big freaking head.
And that's yeah, that's a nice head you got there. And that's assuming that we get to have the league continue next year. So obviously Alaska won last year, hosted the draft, and he's off to a good start. We'll see where he falls in the rankings. Just please don't make any stupid trades with him. If it benefits you a little bit, or what, it's like it's not worth it for the overall of the league to make him better in any fashion.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you do what is best for you. Just knowing that if you are, you don't want to acquire a bunch of picks from him or something, and then him win it all, and all that work was for nothing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you think there's teams that are going to beat him, and you can take advantage of the situation and get some good picks from him,
Yeah.
by all means. Like I don't like you got to be able to trade with the person, but they, the defending champ probably knows like they're going to have to overpay a little bit just based
You're
on
right.
that fact. So
Right. That's
we'll
that's
see.
that's a good way to put it.
We'll see. I mean, we don't want no collusion one way or the other. I mean, everyone doesn't want Laska to win, but that's pretty much every year, even when he
Every year
doesn't.
anyways, yeah. Yes. Although man, I think if I win this year, I'm going to still make him host the draft because that was just convenient, nice location. Don't have to clean up the next day, so that would be my vote. But anyways, let's jump into this. So coming in, consensus number 12. We knew that it was going to be an uphill battle all year. Rebuilding Rome, Mr. Mortel coming in
Yeah,
at number 12. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, Mortel's, he had an uphill battle. He's got a good record, so he's won a couple games. Been a little lucky on that, but won games. He's has the least amount of points scored. He's averaging just under 90 points a game. That's about 12 points below league average, and his average points against is 97. So that's really helped.
Uh,
Having a below league average point total against has helped, and you know he's his team's fine. I'll see if he makes a move, but good team, not a good, sorry, solid team, but just hasn't gotten that. Hasn't gotten Garrett Wilson, the hype on him coming in the last 2 years, you know, but he's found some surprises, and I think he's set himself up for, potentially, with a move here or there, becoming a threat. Baker Mayfield's been fantastic. He's, third overall quarterback. Brian Robinson's been a beast for Washington. Kittle, I mean, tight ends are kind of a weird position this year, but Kittle, even though he missed a week, is number 2 tight end. You got J.K. Dobbins, who's probably been one of, if not the big steals of the draft early on. Um, had a couple quiet weeks these last 2 weeks, but obviously super explosive those first 2 weeks. They've played a couple good defenses the last couple weeks, so
right.
that plays a factor. But and then there's some potential here. I feel like he probably isn't super pumped that he's going with 2 Commanders running backs, but they both kind of have their role, so it kind of works. And
That offense is scoring more points than I think we thought they would right away, but
yeah,
this
well,
team had a hit on a couple things, and like Diggs is, I don't know how long this is gonna hold up. Bauer, honestly, like Diggs is scoring weird touchdowns, like handoffs. Did he throw a pass or something? Like he's just scoring in weird ways, but been productive so far. That's good for this
yeah,
team.
I think Houston is still kind of they had all this hype based off of last year and bringing him over and all this stuff, and I think they're still a young team besides him. I think they're still figuring themselves out, and how does he fit in when there's a clear cut alpha on that team? Diggs hasn't really had to be the secondary option really since he was, I mean, with the Vikings, but that was more of a 1A, 1B. Now he's truly
Right.
like their second option because Nico is
Nico
just such a
is
stud.
so good. He's so good. Yeah,
So I mean,
but
there's potential here. I mean, Demarcus Robinson, with Puka and Cup out, you hope to get some value there. It hasn't been a killer lineup for the Rams. They've kind of just it's been the Kyron show, and then if those guys come back soon, how does that impact him? So yeah, I mean, there's you know a decent team. He's put up a good effort considering how short-handed he was coming into the draft. He's hit on some picks, which is huge, and he's won a couple games early. If he wants to go be aggressive, he could definitely be a team that should, as long as he could be competing for a playoff spot, but he's going to need to get a little more consistent scoring because eventually you're not going to get that luck of teams just not scoring much against you.
right, it'll all even out. But I'm sure if that was an issue, I'd be happy with a 2-2 start with some potential upside here. So that's solid. So I had him at 12. You had him at 11. And
Yep.
moving on to number 11, Mr. Costell.
Yeah,
Let's
Jake.
go ahead.
He's in last place there, 1-3. He has the second fewest points for. Um, just averaging 91.75 points. He's been a little unluckier than Mortel because he's points against. He's had about 105 against him, which is above the league average. So that's definitely playing a part with his record. But his problem is he hasn't had his highest point total is 102.12, which is actually below league average. His low point total is about 67.5. So he just hasn't had a lot of points, but he's also been missing one of his best players. But what I want with this roster, if you look at it, I mean, look at those 2 running backs right there. That
Yeah.
is 2 RB1s right there. Kyron, I think people were a little worried with them drafting Corum and all the punt return nonsense, and then he's just come out there and been an absolute stud. James Cook has looked great. So really, like that's been his bread and butter. And then the rest of his roster has just kind of been banged up, underperformed. But there's a lot of potential on this roster where I think he's 11 right now, but all of a sudden, like you get AJ Brown back healthy. Jalen Hurts is your quarterback, so you get the stack. He's got, Wandale Robinson's kind of quietly been like a heavily targeted receiver, fitting in as a wide receiver 3. Debo's been hurt. Keenan Allen, who knows what he is, but he's been hurt. And then if you go look down at his IR, that is the piece. Or if he gets Brown back healthy and then Nick Chubb comes back and let's say he's, if he's a 70, if he's a half Chubb or better, look
Yeah,
out, man. You like that? But because then all of a sudden he's got 3 stud running backs, 2 good wide receivers. And then I think you can see this team start to ascend if all those guys come back and play like we've kind of grown accustomed to.
absolutely. I mean, I had this team ranked 4 when I did this in after week 1, and you just look at the names, like, and that was before we knew AJ Brown was hurt, or maybe right after that. But you got AJ Brown, Debo Samuel. You talked about the 2 running backs. You talk about Jalen Hurts as being a top 3 or 4 quarterback. Mark Andrews been super disappointing. There's a chance maybe he gets it going. I feel like we haven't seen quite enough, but man, and then you get Chubb in there too in a few weeks maybe. This team, it could be right back to in that 3-4-5 position, no problem. So hang in there, Costell. There's some nice pieces here. Good looking team, even though you're number 11. I had you 10, or I had you 12.
I had you 12, but that's just based on my formula.
It's the formula. Don't blame the man.
Point,
Blame
points
the
for and
formula.
points forward in your place, played a big part. Roster depth wise, he actually was pretty good on and he was like right at the average of the point totals. So pretty good roster if you have that or above, because most people were below it.
All right, just he's gonna get too excited here and all that stuff. Just that's enough on his team. We can't get him too hyped up. All right, coming in number 10 is I think we got the butt nuts consensus ranking. So I had previously ranked them at 11. I had them 11 again in my rankings. Bauer, you had them actually at number 7.
I had them at 7.
So they have I think they're just some letdowns here from the running back room, right? Like Brees Hall was drafted as the second or third overall running back in most redraft leagues, right? And been okay. Last week against Denver was a total bust.
Yeah,
That's too bad. Kyle Pitts has been terrible too. But
Brees, if you look at it, it's last week. He was just solid the first 3 weeks. Double digit points. Solid, and then he just has a dud, and then because of that, his overall position ranking falls.
but
But
he's
still
fine.
an RB2. I had him at 7 just because he's got good wide receivers, and obviously, Jaden Reed has been an absolute beast.
Show me a good. So this is a point of contention, right? Is Rashi Rice?
Yeah,
We don't know for sure as we're recording this. That did not look good. They fear the ACL. If he's done for the year, I think you would have to agree this changes this team's outlook, because then you're rolling out. Jaden Reed is rolling out right now as the number 4 overall wide receiver. He's had 2 big games and 2 just average games, but then you're relying on Jerry Jeudy, Jawan Jennings. He's had those games with Debo and being injured, and with Ayuk kind of ramping up after sitting out. So I don't know. I just get worried without that powerhouse. Like Rashi Rice was dominating until he got hurt.
Yeah, Rashi is going to be the key. If it looks like an ACL is rumored, but it still hasn't been confirmed somehow, that's kind of the only part where I'm like, well, maybe it's not as bad as 'cause usually when it's an ACL, like that's known the next day. So we'll see. Whatever happens there will be a big portion of it. But Jaden Reed, you're pointing out, you look at his two big games. Guess who was the quarterback those two games? Jordan Love.
I
Jordan Love.
suppose that's love. Yeah.
Two games with Malik Willis, kind of nothing. So I think Jaden Reed, with the way the Packers use him, I think he's going to stay up. I mean, is he going to be putting up 30 and 23 points every game? I don't think so. But at the same time, you know, Watson just went down hurt. Love's finally back. Reed kind of is their gadget guy, their go-to guy. So I think he's still up there. And Juwan Jennings, I mean, yes, Debo's back, and he had one monster game, if I remember right. But still, like even with Debo back last week, double-digit points. Is he going to be a stud? I mean, he's not going to get 41 points, so it is a little misleading. But he's probably like a wide receiver 3. Mostert hopefully is coming back soon. That might give him a little boost. I know A-Chain is your guy, but Mostert led the league in rushing touchdowns last year. You imagine he's going to get on the field. So I just think, there's at least some potential here. But yeah, I had him a little higher just based on the formula I had, but a lot of that had to do with having Rashee Rice. Because he still is technically not, he's out this week, but
right. I mean, that definitely moves him up several spots for me. And I guess this came out this afternoon. Mahomes thinks that Rice can return soon. So I didn't know Mahomes was a doctor, but if that is the case, let's go, Jenny.
Yeah, if Rice
back in
is
the
out
mix.
for let's say he's out for 4 to 6 weeks, this is a team that they just got to kind of hang around until they get him back. But I think getting Love back will be big because he's been great the 2 weeks he started. And then, ETN, you just don't know if he's ever going to rebound. But I think this team's solid. They've had some weirdness to them, and the Rice injury is obviously devastating.
Yeah. So, yeah, that'll play a big factor. We'll see what happens there. Josh Downs, he's back on a roster. Had a good game last week. That was with
anybody who has
Flacco?
a Colts receiver wants Joe Flacco to start.
They want Joe Flacco, and that's the same thing that happened in Cleveland last year with the Browns. Like as soon as Flacco came in, that's like remember Amari Cooper went like nuclear in the fantasy football playoffs.
Yep. So I mean that if Richardson, who knows what that guy's up to? He's a goofy guy. He's a snorkeler.
I love when Broik said Lad McConkey is a snorkel, and he's said that as just a quintessential snorkeler.
Dude, he is definitely a snorkeler. His name's
plays for the Chargers.
His name
white guy.
His name is Lad. Like, and he's a McConkey. But
you can't make it up.
So there's a 12, 11, 10. Now we're moving up to
12, 11, 10.
12 and 10. Now we're moving up to 9.
Number 9. So consensus-wise, we got the Molar Bears coming in here. So I had him at 8. You had him at 10. So we're kind of right in the wheelhouse here. They're 1 and 3. And what do we need to know about the Molar Bears, Mr. Bauer?
Yeah, I mean JP, he's kind of 7th in points for, averaging just below league average, and then he's 8th, or he has the 5th most points against, I think. So a little unlucky there. But he's got a good true number 1 RB there in
Chuba Hubbard, yep. Oh,
Montgomery, and then he's got Chuba, who's looked really good lately, and Bijan's been, decent. So he's got a couple running back too. So that's where I see 3 running backs that all are kind of the main guy, or if they're not the main guy, they're in a very good offense like Montgomery, where he gets a lot of time. I think Purdy's going to get better just with finally getting his team back. Receiver's kind of the only question mark on this team, right? Like that's kind of the note that I had written down for JP was lacks firepower in the wide receiver position.
Jameson Williams.
He's had some good games, but he's kind of like
he needs that big play, right?
When you look at the Arizona game, nothing. So he's kind of
Yeah.
like that high reward, high risk, you know, player. Drake London hasn't been the guy that I think he was projected to be. Had some solid weeks, but not. He was kept for a fifth round. I think in redraft, had he made it to the draft, he would have been kind of at that 1-2 turn in our league. So you want a little more there. But good tight ends. Goddard and Kraft are both been solid. I mean, Goddard had that freaking monster game a couple weeks ago where he caught like what 10
Yeah.
to 170. And honestly, the tight end position, I think I heard it on a podcast. If you're getting 6 catches for like 50 to 60 yards, you're freaking ecstatic. So
Yeah, you're good.
yeah, I mean, and then how long is Puka out? That'll be key because then all of a sudden maybe that gives him a little more receiver firepower. But doesn't sound like he's going to be back anytime soon. So solid team, just been a little unlucky on the points for, and then just like I said, lacking, in my opinion, he's just lacking that elite firepower at the receiver position. But rest of the lineup pretty decent.
Yeah, and I think a big problem here too is Bijan Robinson. Like, he's the running back 21 right now. You didn't draft him to be the
No,
running back
he,
21,
he, I
right?
mean, he
So
was what the third or fourth overall pick in our draft. Second, I don't even remember what JP picked, but he was definitely top three.
you're
Mhm.
hoping for you could almost take like just like double up these weeks and have like two like you want those boom games so that can win you a week, and he's just this is what you get in usually like the fifth round out of a running back, like 10, 12, 14 points.
Yeah,
That's great,
and
but
I
so
still just don't think Atlanta has quite figured out how to utilize him best because they still like to throw Algier in there here and there, and then I feel like they're just an offense that's still figuring themselves out because they have a new quarterback, a new coach, all this stuff, and but yeah,
he's talented as all hell. I mean, he just yeah.
if he keeps doing what he's been doing, then yeah, he's going to be a disappointing pick where he got him. But then but overall, I think this team's. I think they're solid. I think receiver is their weak, obviously their weak point, and
Yeah, when you lose Puka, that's a big hit for sure. And I mean, I just pulled up Chuba here. Like when, so Dalton's played these last two games, right?
yeah,
And their offense actually has a pulse. I mean, look, 25 points, 20 points. The end of last year too. Like
he was great.
he had a
And
really good run.
he was on
So
he was on my
I
playoff
think the
list.
talent, I think the talent is there. So that's definitely encouraging. They're sitting at 1-3, like five other people or four other people. So keep fighting, see what happens. Probably be in it. Hey, it's JP. He makes the playoffs. That's what he does.
Well, he's on a 1-year drought, so
1 year drought. Maybe it'll be
all
two. We'll
right.
see.
So then we go
All
to
right.
so that was number 9. Now we go to number 8.
Number 8, consensus wise. This team was ranked number 2 by myself on the initial rankings, and that's the Hoop Johnsons. So I had them at 6 this week. You had them at 10. They're 3-1. So why are they this low? What's going on here?
They have the 10th fewest points scored to go along
That
with the
helps.
11th, or sorry, to go with the second fewest points scored against them. So he's averaging, 92.6 points a week and only having 86.4 points scored against him. So a lot of it has to do with just luck of the draw. His running back depth is, he doesn't have an RB1 or an RB2 on his roster. Wide receivers are fine. Tight end, he's got a couple of tight end ones. So if those running backs can get going, I mean, Mixon's a little unfair just because he's been hurt. But Javonte Williams has kind of been a turd. Zamir
Samir
White
White
has been a
just been terrible.
disappointment. Tyreek Hill without Tua has been disappointing.
Huge.
Laporta finally showed some life last week, but like you look at his receivers, they haven't done. And I mean, Ayuk and Flowers haven't done much. So it's like, Deontay Johnson and Neighbors are kind of, I mean, Neighbors has been an absolute stud. And Deontay, since they've gotten Dalton, has been great. So, um,
Yeah, I mean Malik Neighbors, he what's the latest on him? He concussion. So yeah, he got the concussion, but just been a target machine since after they played the Vikings in week 1. He's got 18 targets, 12 targets, 15 targets. Dude, that's insane.
yeah. And then
Like this guy is
that
awesome.
that's why I forget who had him, but Wandale Robinson. I want to say like Neighbors is leading the league in targets, and Wandale Robinson's like a top 5 target. So it's just like
Jesus.
heavily targeted, and that's because they probably can't run the ball because they don't have Saquon anymore. But there's if Mixon, he gets healthy and starts working, and then he just needs another running back to show up. Hopefully, Tua comes back for him, so Tyreek can give him that explosive wide receiver. Um, but just a lot of underperformers. I mean, Ayuk has been, what is he? He's 61.
He just really hasn't done anything. I mean, he's got his best game is 7, a little over 7 points.
I
I
mean,
mean,
you would think that's going to improve, but it's been 4 weeks. He should be into game shape now. And with the emergence of Juwan Jennings, maybe some of the and teams probably allocating a little more coverage his way with Debo out as well. Like it just hasn't burned out. But then Deontay's a guy
right.
who,
Another
had
guy,
two big
the Red
games.
Rifle.
So I think he's going to be a very consistent, kind of like what Adam Thielen was for him last year. Where
Yeah,
he's just going to be kind of the guy. And sometimes it's nice to have the guy on a bad team because they're usually trailing a lot and got to throw it a lot.
for sure. And you got Josh Allen there. Obviously, he's capable of being a stud. Any week, he's had a couple of duds in there, but when he hits big. So, you know, there's a chance if things change. He needs He needs Mixon to come back healthy and do what he did in week 1. 2, he needs Tyreek Hill to have a quarterback that can get him the ball, or have Mike McDaniel figure out a way to get him the ball. He's too talented to be the wide receiver 28 right now. So a couple of those things happen. They're 3-1 right now. Keep winning, keep trying, keep these guys rolling, and that could be a scary team. So
Yeah, and then you look
um,
at his IR spot, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I had CEH, but just due to injuries and having to like fill out a lineup, I had to drop him. And then I just didn't put a claim in for him. But that Chiefs running back room is open for a while. And I think it's just going to be is it Kareem Hunt going to have a resurgence there? Is Clyde going to finally like take the reins? I don't think Carson Steele is the answer, and I think Samaje Perine is mainly just like a pass catching back. So
right.
potentially could get a running back there, but as we've seen with Clyde throughout his career, he leaves a lot to be desired.
He sure does. He sure does. Not to be confused with our next ranking person, Mr. Number 7 coming in. Mr. Hanrahan never leaves. What do you say? A lot to be desired? You're always desired when you're around him.
Yeah, yeah,
I kind
Hanahan.
of I kind of botched that, but he's 4-0 and he's winning games, ugly games, but he's undefeated, man, and his team is kind of weird. So, in my power index, he came in at 11 out of 12 on his score. I ranked him at number 9 just because he had some wins and whatever. You had him ranked at number
5.
5. So he falls to number 7 consensus wise. But love Nico Collins, a wide receiver 1. What a beast. But talk me through, build me up here. You like this team.
Well, it's more. I mean, being 4-0 is huge. I mean, you look at you're in first place, you haven't lost. I mean, at the end of the day, that's got to account for something. Now he's gotten very lucky. Teams are averaging 78 points per week against him, so that's
Must be nice.
obviously very nice because he's got the 8th highest point total, so it's not like he's stellar. He's
No,
averaging, 98.9, almost 99 points a game. So he's scoring below league average. Um, but ultimately, he's got, a QB1 in Burrow who should only be getting better.
which he
He's got
has, right? I mean, it's basically every week. Well, since week one, he's been decent. Week 3 against Washington was nice. Tough matchup against Baltimore coming up, but continue.
but with T Higgins back, and I feel like Cincinnati is always that team that starts slow.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I like Burrow.
you know, Singletary, he's okay. He traded CMC for him. Getting points right now, because I mean, if you didn't have Singletary, he's probably not winning a couple of those matchups.
Yep,
Obviously, giving up CMC hurts, but who knows if he's even going to play? Rashad
right,
White's
right.
been disappointing, but they still just like to use him. But his receivers, they're not bad. And when you look at he's got Nico Collins, the number one receiver in fantasy football. I think he's on pace for like 2,000 yards. So I like that. Jake Ferguson's a solid tight end. I think Christian Kirk. I think Jacksonville finally targeted him last week. You
They
know,
did. They did. He
he's
finally had a nice game,
he's had
back to
a
back
couple
weeks, double
back-to-back
digits.
weeks, so they've maybe figured something out there. Um, Rashid Rashid Shaheed, he's kind of like Jameson Williams, where he's just kind of a boom or bust. Obviously, had that goose egg on the one week, but every other week's been good, right?
It's so funny because this is like, all right, he scores week 1, Carolina. Ah, okay. Week 2, oh wow, okay. So everybody benched him those first 2 weeks for the most part,
Then
and
they
then
start
everyone
him
plays him.
goose egg.
He gets 0. Then they bench him again, and he gets
He
11.
pulled the
That's his
he pulled
fantasy.
the pulled the Gabe Davis.
The game,
But
yeah, the
you know, I, I
game.
I think for me the big thing with him was he's just because he's 4-0, that weighed heavily into my ranking. And so he's okay. Like his
Oh
team's
yeah,
fine.
it's fine. Like Waddle has been a disappointment for sure. Like he had a decent week 1 against Jacksonville, but without Tua, that whole offense is just stuttering.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's going to be, that's kind of that is key. It's if Tua's back, all of a sudden Waddle's stock goes up a little higher. Um, but yeah, this team does not have a ton of depth. I will say that. Like,
right now,
take Nico
with
Collins
Watson
off
getting
this
hurt,
team, you know, this team's going to be struggling. He's kind of been a beast, so he's going to need some more production. Charbonnet. Now that Walker's back, how much more run does he get? Because Walker looked absolutely good. So there's reasons to be concerned here, but ultimately, I would take 4-0. I don't care how I got there. I mean, I'm 1-3.
right? I mean, part of the game is getting into the playoffs and see what happens. Like every week, there's been 1 or 2 big stud guys getting hurt, right? That are going to completely reshape the fantasy landscape. And if you make it to the playoffs and you're healthy, that's all you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
So good start, hand or hand. Definitely luck of the Irish there, but you'll take it. All right, coming in. So we've gone through half the league so far. So moving into the top half here. Um, this guy you know very well. You might know him better than anyone else in the league.
Is this number
Who are
7
you?
or 6?
This would be
I think it's
6.
7.
Well, because
Wait,
we
hold
had
on. Hold
Mortel, Cossell, Jenny, JP,
on.
Lostness, Hannerhan.
Okay,
So now we're
sure.
on
So we're on 6.
to
Yeah,
number
six
number
is
6.
me.
The
Uh,
old kidney club, the one kidney club. So I had him at. You were previously ranked 10 by me. I had you at 7, and you had yourself at 6. So right in that wheelhouse. So you go ahead and explain what's been going on with your team. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
yeah. Team's been solid. I have the 5th most points in the league, averaging 106 points per game. You know, my low is 91.6 points, so not a terrible floor, but just been kind of consistent. The big knock on me is the first 3 weeks I faced the highest scoring team, including 2 of the weeks I faced the two top scorers of the season. My average points against is 120.4 points. So
That's
pretty much
brutal.
anyone who's dealing with that average is losing those first 3 weeks. Jenny, unfortunately had some injuries last week where that kind of allowed me to finally get that first win. But with my roster, Dak's been okay. He still hasn't really had a boom game yet. Jonathan Taylor's been great. Hopefully his injuries, all right. And then really Tony Pollard and James Conner have kind of been the keys to my team. They're just both workhorses. Pollard has really emerged as the guy in Tennessee. And I also want to take a little shot at all you guys for ripping on me for taking Pollard over Gus Edwards. So you all can suck it.
Did we
But
give you shit at the draft or what?
Yeah, people were wondering why I took Pollard over Gus Edwards, or maybe I gave Laska the choice and he chose Gus before Pollard. I can't remember. Either way, I remember people were laughing at me, or maybe it was just Laska. But
I don't know, man. I don't. You were on a different planet for a while during the draft. I don't. Maybe that didn't even
yeah,
happen.
that pucker got me good. But anyways, problem with my team is my wide receivers. I haven't had a healthy roster yet this year. I started the team that I would hope to draft. Because Higgins was out the first few weeks, then Addison got hurt. Now Devontae Adams is hurt. Trey McBride got hurt. So I've dealt with some injuries, but you know, average wise, like when you're looking at, Addison in his 2 games, if you just go on point average, would be a wide receiver 2, as would Adams. So that makes my team seem a little better than what they have been. But ultimately, injuries are part of the game. So, but another bright spot for me has been Brian Thomas. He's been pretty good. They targeted him a lot last week, finally, and he's
Yeah.
solid flex spot
He's
start.
just a rookie too, and like as bad as Jacksonville has looked, he's been a bright spot there.
Yeah,
So you got to be encouraged about him for sure.
so I like like I said, I got good running back depth. I need some health in my wide receiver lineup, and I think my team's hanging around, and I
You
need to
just
win.
haven't been able to put it. You haven't been able to put it all together, right? Like people are either they're ramping up or they get hurt, so they're ramping down. Now you got to
I
buy
mean,
with Pollard, so it's. I feel like once this team is all set, like
like they're just solid.
Devontae Adams. So, like, do you want Devontae Adams to get traded as the owner of him, or do you want him to stay in Vegas?
It depends. Is he going to get traded to a team like Washington or the Jets or the Cowboys?
I'm
I
here
would
in
love that. Like teams where I
I'm
feel
here
like
in
there's
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Don't I don't believe in Pittsburgh. Like I just don't trust their quarterbacks enough to. But Pittsburgh would be like a wash. But if you went to Washington, the Jets, or the Cowboys somehow, like I'd be fine with that. But some of the other teams I've seen, I'm a little like, you don't want that. But I don't
Yeah,
really care. At the end of the day, if Addison can just do what he did last week, and T Higgins is, he's getting healthier.
you
Uh,
just want your guys to play. You guys want your
I
guys to
just want them to
be
play so I
healthy.
can just see. But team's fine. I'm, been reaching out to people, seeing if they want to make any moves. No one's ready to go yet, and I feel like I have potential this team because I got good, solid running backs, and I got you know Bucky Irving, who's going to take over the Tampa backfield at some point this season.
He will.
He's way better than Rashad White. And it's not
Sean
even
White's had a tough go at it. Yeah,
so.
for
We'll
sure.
see. But I think team's solid. Like I said, I think they're just middle of the pack, which is fine. Haven't getting a win last week was nice, just to get some morale boost, and we'll just go.
You get to play Martell this week too, so maybe
Yeah,
you could get
I
a
mean,
couple in a row.
you never know. I mean, Mortel's had he's got some magic
He's got a
in
better record than both of us,
him.
so
He's got as many wins as the two of us combined. So maybe we should.
how about that?
But anyways, let's move
But
on to the next team because I'm tired of talking about mine.
it is always weird talking about your own team. So we'll move on to a team that we both had ranked. No, never mind. He came in at number 2 in my power index, actually, and he was previously ranked number 1 overall. He's got a 1-3 record. he is in the same boat as you, getting just a lot of points scored against him. And that's our favorite snorkeler, Mr. Adam Broik. You had him at
I had him at 8.
number 8. And I had him at 5, but the power index had him at 2. So it's a polarizing team. There's some things you like here. There's some things that obviously haven't gone their way. Um, Richardson has been a tricky deal, but go ahead, take this one away, Bo.
Yeah, so record wise, it's not great. Points wise, he's got the ninth most points scored for so not really scoring a bunch yet. And then he has the second most points against. So that's a tough formula when you're averaging 96.5 points and you're having 110 over 110 points scored on you. It's hard to win games that way. But when you look a little deeper, there's what you see. One, he got in my formula, he got points for having Sam Darnold, just because Sam Darnold is he's a quarterback one, but he keeps wanting to start Anthony Richardson for God knows what reason. I mean, Darnold's just
Jeez.
been solid first week, and then he's been great the last three.
Yeah,
Very
20
efficient.
points.
He's got a tough
Very
matchup
nice.
this week, I guess, so maybe that's why you with Richardson. But you know what? I look at his team, and he's got a running back one in Aaron Jones, who's been fantastic. He's got a running back two in Ramondre, who's been kind of iffy, but the Patriots just seem like they're never gonna take snaps away from the guy.
Really good start though, and
Yeah,
then the Jets are tough. Two tough defenses. Maybe you
yeah,
chalk it up to that. Miami,
yeah.
Houston, Jacksonville next. So
And then
he's a good player.
he's got Chase Brown, who kind of that I think that Cincinnati backfield. I think both those guys are going to be startable here. I think they both get enough touches, and they both kind of bring something different to the table. So he's kind of he's an RB3, but what really made this team stand out is Jamar Chase and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, Jamar Chase
For
has
sure.
caught fire the last couple of weeks. Um, obviously
Yep.
James Washington had the touchdown against Carolina, and I feel like I said before, I think the Bengals' offense is going to be one of those that's just going to get better as the season goes. And then Mike Evans has been decent, and then he's got Travis Kelsey, who's slow start, but now with Rice potentially out, who else do they have to throw to that Mahomes is going to trust? And Kelsey finally kind of had a Kelsey game, so I
Well,
think
they had a nice
there's
game.
reason
Yeah.
for optimism on this team. And then hopefully he can survive long enough, because if he gets Pacheco back, I mean Pacheco, just based on his scoring average, was an RB2. So it's if that injury doesn't happen, this team's probably up higher, because they probably win a game here or there, and had a good week last week, and I think team's in the right direction. I think they're still one of the best rosters, top to bottom. In fact, on my calculation, they had the second best overall roster next to the guy who I have number one. So, and
Yeah.
they were pretty clear cut above the next teams. So,
Right. They came in. Yeah, like I said, second in my index, but power rankings wise, fifth for me. But yeah,
Snorkel's got a good team. They just gotta get a little luck here, because they didn't score, because their
I
roster
love. I
roster is
love everyone in
too good.
this league, right? I there's people I cheer for more than others to win a championship, and that would be you obviously, and then this team here, Broik. Like, if it's not me, you're my next two. Like, let's go,
Yes.
come on.
Yeah, that break board number two. But
Ooh.
all right, so
All
that's
right,
number five. And now we kind of get
next,
into. I think
are we in the top four?
we're in the top four, and I think three of them are pretty clear cut. I think you'll understand why, and then one of them I think personally is the best team in the league, but we'll see who. So let's get to number four.
Number four, consensus wise, they came in on my rankings earlier at number 3. I have them at 3. You have them at 4. That's the silent killer, Mr. Kelly Dog. who is 2-2. He got a he only got beat by Alaska last week, but he is he's just always finds his way at the top of the rankings. He might have a down year once in a while, but he's tough, man. He's tough. It sucks with Cooper Cup, right? Like, imagine where this team would be without that happening. But solid squad here nonetheless. What do you like?
Yeah, so he's the fourth highest scoring team, and he has the fifth most points against. So that's pretty on brand for why he's 2-2. He's averaging 107.2. He has 106.5 scored against him. So he's putting up points. His low point total of the year is 94.3, which I think just Alaska is the only person who has like a higher low end of their mark. So pretty consistent, in there. If he had Cooper Cup and Devonta Smith, he would actually be up higher in the rankings because his on the formula they would both be just based on averages. One Cup was a wide receiver one, and Devonta was a wide receiver two. So he would, if healthy, this team would have the second best roster. Now Devonta Smith should be back after the bye with concussion, so that'll help. And then Cup, I think I heard last maybe a couple more weeks, but that'll be huge because he's just Mr. Hyper targeted. 25 was that 21 targets week one, just like insane. And he was getting heavily targeted before he had that injury. So once he gets those guys back, and you see Cup last a game, then I think this team's clearly going to move up in these rankings. But mine was more just based on what's happened so far, not so much as a projection moving forward. But he's got a quarterback one, he's got a running back one, he's got great wide receivers, he's got two wide receiver ones. Plus he's got Cup and Devonta Smith. So JJ and Godwin have been unbelievable. And then he's got a couple of interesting pieces now. Not only does he get Smith and Cup back, but he's got T.J. Hawkinson sitting there. His practice window is going to be open. And then Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he's at least interesting. I mean, I think if Chuba keeps playing the way he is, I don't think Brooks is going to have that, boom potential you're probably hoping for. But he'll at least cut into that a little bit. And then Xavier Worthy's got some potential just with the Rashi Rice and his explosiveness. Maybe they get him a little more involved, but running back definitely. Gibbs has been pretty good, but Harris and Madison leave a lot to be desired, and not getting Jonathan Brooks is like the true alpha in Carolina kind of hurts, but his receivers are so good. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference.
He's got so many just like not handcuffs, but like potential running back breakouts with Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Jonathan Brooks when he comes back.
Yeah.
Alexander Madison was kind of that to Zamir White too, right?
When this roster's healthy, like you have Gibbs and Harris as your running backs, Worthy's on the bench, then you have Cup and Devonta Smith out there. Like that is a scary, scary lineup. So a healthy Kelly dog is probably one or two in the power rankings if he was healthy.
And it's a good week to catch him for Jenny. He's got Devonta Smith out and on a bye. He's got Jahmyr Gibbs out on a bye. So he'll have a good chance there. But the reason we have him this high is that just the overall roster construction and the potential here. And he's 2-2, right in the middle. I have never heard if like Kelly watches these or sees these, or I don't know.
He watches them because he texts me if we're going to record any of them a couple weeks ago. I was like, I think we're doing this week, and then
okay,
I lied. That's good. I meant the following week, but
I lied.
So, all right, nice. Well, let's get to the top three.
Top three. Okay, so consensus wise, it's the overhands coming in. They're at 1 and 3. My power index had me at 3. I ranked myself at 4, and you actually ranked me where?
I had you number 1.
So, tell me why. I mean, there's some things I like. I don't like my record. I don't like how I feel like every week I'm going to win, and then all of a sudden my team just stops scoring points. I don't like that. What do you like here?
You have the third most points scored. You're averaging 107.6 points a game. Been a little unlucky having, the third most points scored against you. So that's, little reason there. But you have, you know, two great options at quarterback and Fields and Kyler. You have the best running back depth at the moment with Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, HN, Zach Moss. I mean, Jordan Mason, obviously, it depends on CMC, but that's just such like a scary situation. Like if you like didn't have other players, where he's going to be playing for a good month before
Yeah.
CMC's back. He's great. Kenneth Walker looked fantastic, and he did it against a defense that doesn't give up there. Achan's explosive, and he's still been okay without Tua. He hasn't been amazing, but he's been okay. And then I think Zach Moss has looked solid. Like, that's not great. Obviously 7-4, but um Moss has
Yeah,
been
Moss.
solid. And then I look at your wide receivers, and you have CeeDee Lamb, who's a wide receiver one, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like that's arguably the best 1-2 punch of any wide receiver group. And then you have so that's just it's just really really good. Like, and then you have Scary Terry, who
Scary Terry. Some signs of life, baby.
Jaden Daniels looks really good. So this is why to me, like just depth wise, you had on my scale, you had the best roster top to bottom, the third most points. The only thing that's hurting you right now is record. But you finished pretty clear cut in my rankings above the next two guys on this list.
When I was running my brand new model that I was creating, it just kept putting me at number one, and I said, I need to figure out a way where it doesn't do that. So I finally got it to spit me out at number 3 with just a few points behind number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So apparently there's potential here.
Yeah, and
I would like to see some wins.
And I like Rico Dowdle because there hasn't really been a running back. He looks like the best running back in Dallas. Jacoby Myers with Devontae out and all that, he becomes, maybe a bigger role. You have Njoku, who's a good tight end, coming back. Ertz has been fine. He's been solid. Like, there's just a lot to like about this team. There's not really a weak point. Where I think when you look at the other two teams that are still left, one of them definitely has a weak point. And then one of them is pretty solid. They just don't have quite the stud power at certain positions.
Right, and that's why it's always so interesting after 4 weeks. Like in 2 or 3, 4 weeks from now, a lot of the things we've talked about are going to change, obviously. But when you're sitting at 1 and 3, it's easy to have a certain lens at your team versus sitting 3 and 1 or 4 and 0. So, I'm confident in this team. I believe there's upside. I would love to get a win this week against the Molar Bears. We'll see how that goes. But let's jump ahead to the top 2 here. So coming in at number 2, just because it's illegal. It's illegal to put this guy at number 1 because it would literally break everything that everyone knows.
His head's big enough; it doesn't need to get any
right. Like there would be like crazy weather that would start happening in Minnesota, like too much gravity coming through us, so it's not good. But so it's the Empire Pot guy that's going for it all. It's Alaska, hosts a hell of a party, but he also kind of has a hell of a team too going on here.
Yes, he does. He's leads the league in scoring. He's averaging almost 120 points a game, which is impressive. He has his lowest point total of the season was 94.38. All the others have been great. He has the 7th most points against, so it's not like he's getting lucky either. So he's just been great, but you look at his team, and it's all based on the top, pretty much those top 3 guys on his roster, and then, pretty much those guys. And then, because it's like, 2 wide receiver ones, Kamara and Henry, have been outstanding. Kamara just loves being kept by the coon on the cobs. He just balls out every time he's on that guy's roster.
The 43 in week 2 helps a lot, but even taking that away, it's been just solid.
And then Derrick Henry looks. I mean, that game on Sunday night was like vintage King Henry. Like
It's
he
so
seems
good.
to like just
199 rushing yards,
yeah,
dude.
like in the way Baltimore runs is great. And then Jaden Daniels has been incredible. Is he the top quarterback?
He's a quarterback one in our
Yeah.
league.
He's got quarterback
Came out
one,
hot,
running back
had a
one,
weird week,
running back
but
three. So when you look at that, you're like, oh man, like how is this guy not number one? He's the most points. He's got those three studs. But what dropped him was his wide receivers. He joked that he has no wide receivers in the group text, and then you went and looked at it, and he really doesn't. He has
but here's the
no
thing though,
wide
like
receiver one. He has no wide receiver one, two, or
Amari Cooper
three.
is so close to being like a top wide receiver. He's had like some overthrows and some drops
Yeah,
on some big long touchdowns, but aside from that, it's not good.
yeah. He has no wide
He-
receiver ones, no wide receiver twos, no wide receiver threes. Now Dontavian
yeah,
Wicks,
it is.
obviously the game script allowed it to happen just because they were down big. Um, he could be funny. I think it was hilarious that Blake pointed out that Laska literally
Yeah,
broke
this
him
is
last week
awesome.
and then had to pay 41. That might be the funniest thing. But if Wicks can improve, if Amari Cooper can kind of, he's getting a lot of targets. Kincaid's been good. Jacobs has been a solid. He just had a game script got out of hand last week. Jerome Ford, his time is limited with Chubbs. I think practice window coming out, but he could get Kareem Hunt to maybe take over. Tank Dell's been a disappointment. Hopkins, you got to get Will Levis out of there. I think that just sucks. Ty
Yeah.
Chandler, good handcuff. He's got his Packer running back sitting there. So if he can get some wide receiver production to go along with those top three guys, then this team is going to be very, very scary.
Yeah,
But
I mean, yeah, Xavier Legette, rookie for Carolina, had a finally his breakout game last week. 10 targets, 6 catches, and a touchdown. So
yeah, so there's
I think
he's got to hit on some of these though, because if he's not getting much out of the wide receiver position, then he's got to bank on his quarterback and his top two running backs scoring. The three of them together, I think with like 70 points between the three of them, they're averaging.
right, and that's the weird thing, like too, that it's so much top end firepower that he really just needs everybody else to be okay, and maybe one guy to blow up here and there to like stay competitive. But good record so far. In my power index, he came in at number 6. Um, just because of this lack of depth beyond that. Like
Yeah,
if one of those top 3 guys goes down, like season's over.
yeah, because on mine he got a lot of points for being in second place. He got obviously
Right.
a lot of points for being the leading scorer, but then you looked at his player depth, which was part of mine, and he ranks no different than guys that are what Mortel, JP, Jenny, Hanrahan based on that. So it's like there's not a ton of depth.
No, it's ugly.
So
It's
we'll
ugly
see.
for
I mean,
sure.
he's Laska. He's good. He knows what he's doing.
He's good. Yeah, yeah. You had to count that in too. Like he knows what he's doing. He's won championships before. Whenever you have 3 of the top like 5, 6 players in all of fantasy at any position, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So top
All right,
heavy,
so that leaves one.
that top heavy is very good. If you get 70 points a week from your top 3 and you only need like 30 points from the other 7 guys just to like win, that's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, Alaska knows a couple things about being top heavy too.
So that leaves us with one person left, and not only is he the number 1 in the power rankings, but he's also the best football player of all of us. So no offense to anyone else, but we all know it.
Oh no, no choice. It's always so funny when I write out the teams, and every time I type it out or write it, and you you did the same thing. Everyone's Tlougan, Bauer, Laska. It's not Clark, it's Leon.
It's Leon.
It's Leon. What's up, Lee?
What's up, Lee?
Hope you're doing good, brother. Welcome to the number 1 spot, my friend. I previously had you ranked at number 9 in week 1. My power index had you at number 1. Bauer, you had him at number 3 in your rankings here, but I like this team a lot. I think there's upside. I think there's solid teams here, or solid guys on this team here. So, um, what do you like about Mr. Leon Clark's squad?
Well, he's got the second most points scored, averaging 112 points a game, and he's gotten off to a 3-1 record despite having the fourth most points against. Having 107 points scored against him. So he's had some shootouts every week. So he's scoring. He's got Lamar's number 2 quarterback, right? And he's got Saquon Barkley, who has just been phenomenal with Philadelphia. And then DK Metcalf has been a stud in Seattle. Chris Olave has started to show. I think he had a little down week last week. I mean, it was okay, 12.7, but he's showing some flash, and you're just looking for. He got to keep him for a later pick, so you're just looking for that. Solid. You didn't give up a lot for him. The only Leon had what did he have roster depth wise? He had player depth. He was, pretty good. He was, right along with, myself and Kelly Dog in terms of like the point
I'm
total.
going to look at it. I think you're right. I think I do like my team better.
But, DeAndre Swift showed some
Leon
flash
show.
last week. Can he continue to do that? Because if he can keep doing that,
Yeah, that was
and you've
big.
got Saquon, that's huge because then Justice Hill, who's actually been really solid, can be kind of a flex play. The only knock on this team is kind of they don't have you know, they have good depth and they have the potential of CMC, but there's not, that flex position's a little weaker than other teams. Um, so let's say, he's got Saquon, so he's going to have Justice Hill, and then he'll probably have either Dobbs or Whittington, maybe a Calvin Ridley here or there, but, CMC is kind of the one thing sitting there. If he comes back and he's CMC, then all of a sudden Leon is looking very scary, very good. But yeah, I had him 3. I think I had Laska 2. I had you 1, and it just went to the totality of the roster. But all 3 teams, you're nitpicking at this point. You guys were
Yeah, really. I don't. Yeah,
first
there's been years past.
top 3 scoring teams in the league. You and Leon have, you've had some unluckiness with just how many points have been scored against you. He's done pretty well with the amount of points scored against him. I actually had it wrong. Leon has more points scored against him than you, so I flipped off the things. But
Oh, okay.
either way, a really good team. And yeah, if Devontae Adams does get traded, I think that makes Brock Bowers even more valuable. So
Yeah, he's been great. I think he had
yeah,
he's had a couple of down weeks, but he will be solid. Like he showed enough talent. He was getting the targets, but he is he's in a position here when you got the 3 wins, potentially make one move, right? And that can kind of change it with it the roster looks, but
yeah. I mean, he paid
you gotta like it.
he paid a premium for CMC. Would he give up a second round pick for him in Singletary?
That's right. He already made the move, but that, I mean, he hopes for himself that works out. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one.
I more just want it because I enjoy watching Christian McCaffrey play football. Like
He's a great, great.
he's so good, and so I if he comes back, that just means when I knock Leon out in the playoffs, it's gonna hurt him even more because he's gonna have this superstar team, and my Scrody 1 kidney club is just gonna shock the world. But yeah,
So we got
really good team. I'm glad that you said that you like your roster more too, because I like your roster more than Leon's as well. Now, if he has McCaffrey in there, that changes things. But currently, I'd take you over both of those 2.
But he's got the record. Maybe I put too much emphasis on that.
We have 1 versus 2 in the power.
We do.
Rankings.
That's why I pulled this up here. So this is a big one. Laska is slated to apparently kick his ass, but
Laska, no Saquon definitely make a big difference.
Yeah, that's
he
huge
has to start some scrub wide receiver from the Packers.
Yeah,
and Jordan Whittington. Who the F is that?
Don't even know. So that's a big matchup. Obviously, they're both 3-1. And then who else have we got? That's
Well, thing is, like,
Interesting here.
there's just not a there's not a ton, like, 'cause so many people are just like 2-2 or 1-3. Like you get the 2-3-1 teams there. You got Poop Johnson. Who's he taking on?
Oops, sorry, I
Again,
got the snorkelers.
so that's a good record versus a team that we are more favorable in the power rankings for. So that's an interesting one. That's projected to be a great matchup. You got the Butt Nuts and Kelly Dog. Kelly Dog just has an awful like bye week and injury, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. Sometimes that's just one of those where you're like, I'm off to a good start. I don't want to drop anyone. I'm just going to take the L or maybe get lucky because the Butt Nuts button it up and then yeah,
Yeah. I was
Castell.
gonna say, I was gonna say too, like with these rankings, I'll bring this over into view here. So just to recap, we had Mortel, Costel, Jenny, JP, Lostness at number 8, and then Hanrahan, Bauer, Broik, Kelly, Tlougan, Laska, Leon as our consensus rankings. There's been years in the past where there's a clear cut like top 1 or 2 or 3 teams that's like really really good. Like I don't think we have that right now. I don't think we have a team that's like super favored to win it all yet. Um, and I don't think anyone's necessarily out of it yet either. So I think
No, I mean,
it's kind of wide open.
I think these next 2 weeks will, especially the next two, will have a big impact on any trades because there's a couple teams that they need either to start scoring or some points, and if they don't get either, they've just gotten off to such rough starts. But should be good. Got an early Vikings game this week. I actually kind of love that just because I get to wake up in the
This would be
morning,
nice.
watch the Vikes. Hopefully, f up the Jets. I think it's kind of a scary game personally, but we'll see.
It is. It is. You kind of that Rogers fear, right?
Oh, Rodgers and their D line against Ingram.
Yeah. Specifically, Ingram.
Just Ed. Everyone else is fine, but they're just gonna line up Quinn Williams right over him. But boys, it's been a good year. Love the lively group text, Broik, you and I. What's up, baby? Um, yeah, should be a good week. Hopefully, we get some high scoring games. I just want to see points scored. I want to see this. I want to see everyone get over 100 points this week. If that happens, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. Where's those gift cards? Like, start handing those out for like getting over 100 points.
Yeah, I still owe Blake the gift card from winning the losers bracket. Also, on a side note, all you guys that did not join our guillotine league are missing out, baby.
Oh,
It is
missing out.
great. Next year, please do it. It's so fun. The sweat is real, and it just gives you more chance to talk fantasy football with your boys. So
And this is your first time actually doing one, right?
yeah, so it's
And
been.
you've talked about it before. Now you're finally in. Is it exceeding your expectations exponentially?
Well, I mean, it's kind of what I expected. Like I've been on the chop block a couple times already, and I had a miraculous comeback this week. That was really fun. Um, but it's fun.
No,
I think
great.
if we were playing for more money, it would be like a lot more intense. But we'll see. I'm just hoping to survive as long as I can and get lucky.
Yeah, there can only be one winner. So, anyways, it's been great. I know this is like really long. It's like over an hour long, and there's a lot of serious content. Maybe our next one will be a little more
Well,
lighthearted, but I think
we had a lot to get
we
through.
needed this.
We hadn't done a show yet. We didn't even do a preseason ranking. I mean, I know you did one, but
Right,
we haven't done this. So, plus,
right.
secretly, these guys love the sounds of our voices.
It
And
puts them to sleep. It wakes them up. They listen to it in the car. Like this is gonna be the
well,
best thing that's happened to them all week.
apparently, Laska listens to us while he's in the shower because Natalie's like, I walk into the bathroom and I hear your voice coming out of there. I'm like, oh, hey, Dan.
Lively giant.
Oh, that thing don't look too lively now, though.
Good stuff. Well, good luck, everybody. Hopefully, Bauer, we can do this again in a couple weeks
Yeah.
as we get to the mid-season point.
Yeah, I think, if a couple weeks, if we have some big trades happen or something, like something that kind of, is worth chatting about, we'll definitely do it.
Right on. All right, everyone, be safe, be healthy. We'll talk to you soon.
Dude, it's still recording.
Still going. All right. Welcome back.
We are here. I was just gonna have you just like hit stop record and then we can just chat a little bit, but
Well, I was trying to do that.